Good morning, everyone. It's like 8 a.m. when I'm recording this. All the cats want breakfast desperately. And this is the first time I'm speaking today, so welcome to a new vlog. I started a new book last night. Oh my god, you read the title, you know what it is. I started Narnia. Gordo.
Hey girl, I see you!
I love the movies. They're so sad. They're so good. I have owned this box set since I was like 10. So I've decided I'm gonna take the leap and actually read these. Starting off with The Magician's Nephew. Who is peeing so loud right now? So my box set has these in chronological order and not publishing order. I really don't know what the public opinion is of which one you should do. I'm kind of happy that they're in chronological order and not publishing order because I feel like I'm reading the prequel to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is book 2. And I started this last night and I got 87 pages into it, which is like halfway. This is so much easier to read and faster than I thought it would be, because I think I've tried to read this multiple times growing up and I always just got bored, but that might be because I was a lot more of a realistic fiction reader and not much of a fantasy reader. But I just recently watched all 3 Lord of the Rings films and I just knew I'm gonna really need to get into high fantasy because it was so much fun. I think I'm finally just in the mood for stuff like this. When I was marking this on Goodreads, I literally said, like, I need C.S. Lewis to take me away into a new world the way that Fontaine took Valjean to the afterlife. I just cannot wait to get further into these and like fully analyze them. I'm trying to be a little bit more understanding of what I read and not just be like, hee hee, it's about a lion and a boy. I wrote a whole essay. I wrote a whole essay about Lucy Pevensey for one of my classes and I need to go dig that up because I loved writing that essay because I love Lucy. This one follows a boy named Diggory and a girl named Polly. During their explorations when they're bored, they find this attic of Diggory's uncle that has been forbidden to them, and when they go into it, he's like, hee hee, I found you children, and transports them to another world with these magical rings. And so once they're there, Polly is like, we must go back. Like, she's the logical, like, Susan thinker, but Diggory is like, what if we explore a little bit? So already I'm seeing a couple of things, like the theme of if you have a button that says do not press, like, do you press it? It's playing a lot on childhood curiosity and like the consequences of your actions. And I just love these. I have illustrated editions, so anytime I'm reading and it's describing somewhere and I'm like, huh? I'll turn the page and it'll do like one of these. Also, I guess I'll jump into spoilers right now. I love that this is a prequel because the White Witch Jardis is like our title main character or villain, and also Diggory is Professor Kirk, who is the guy who owns the wardrobe and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I've always been curious about him and what his story is, and I didn't realize he's like actually in them until Sonia was watching them with me and they were like, oh my god, yeah, the wardrobe is made of a tree that they cut down. I was like, what? So that let me know that I really needed to read these and get the full backstory. I will now be spending the next couple of weeks making my way through Clive Staples Lewis, in case any of y'all thought CS stood for something normal like Chase Stephen. No, it's fucking Clive Staples. And we're already well underway with book 1, so join me as I experience Narnia for the first time as a full-grown adult, because apparently when I was little I didn't understand shit. Good morning. What a beautiful Saturday morning to talk about original sin in Genesis. I didn't record last night because I was like sleeping in my bonnet in bed in my giant t-shirt, but last night I finished The Magician's Nephew. It was good. It's funny because you know that these are kids books, but you can't help but be like, oh, this is like this thing, or oh, this is teaching this lesson. And I think because I've read Narnia for college classes before, I was like in my mind thinking about fantasy tropes, especially because C.S. Lewis was friends with Tolkien. I couldn't help but notice some of the themes in it that I really enjoyed. Like the main character Diggory is constantly faced with these like should you or shouldn't you, and then has to face the consequences of when he's impulsive. It also very clearly sets up a parallel between Aslan creating Narnia being creationism. I just love Aslan. I love figures in books that serve as a very like reverential parental figure, or in this case like a god. I remember when I first read Percy Jackson, like anytime Poseidon was in the book, I was like, oh my god, like he is so powerful. When they just exude authority, I just love it. So I have adored Aslan since I was a kid. It was great to see the very beginning, which was interesting because I feel like I kind of remember this book, so I don't know if I actually did read it as a kid, or maybe I've just heard about bits and pieces of it that made it make sense in my head. But as I was reading, especially the end of it, when he has to go to the garden and get the apple, I was like, a bit familiar. Might be because it's also kind of the story of Adam and Eve, but this did spur me Googling this book title, and then I got down a rabbit hole of learning more about C.S. Lewis. If I was a better YouTuber, I would make this a whole like researched video and tell you about each book. It's a perfect setup because it tells you why the villain is there, how the land was created, what the intention of it is. You get to see Aslan's foresight into he knows in a couple hundred years things are gonna go wrong. I also love that the Narnia really plays with the theme of childishness being the thing that lends you access to that world. I know it's also trying to play on like being a believer or a non-believer, but something about like the kids having the imagination that then grants them participation in Narnia. They're the ones who fully understand it because they can see things from that childish perspective that makes them like more, I can't even talk, but I love the perspective that because of childhood imagination, they're able to like fully get involved in this world, versus when the adults go, they're like, holy shit, what is this? I also like that it had a bit of the theme, like it reminded me of the Lorax a little bit, because the uncle going to Narnia was like, oh my god, we can bring buildings here and we can capitalize on this and I can make this vacation spot and pay for it and I'm gonna be so rich. Like the way that grown-ups see things immediately from the perspective of how does this benefit me, but the kids are just like in childlike wonder about everything. I miss being a kid. And I love that Narnia reminds you that being imaginative and being a kid sometimes is all you can do. Like it'll make you the main character of a book to stay open-minded and stay, I don't know, respective of nature. So I finished that. I give it like 4 stars. This definitely is like the rising action for the world and the setting the ground. I did like Diggory and Polly's story. I like that the narrator sets off little asides. Like later he would tell people it was like this. So I love when you get to have those inklings of knowing that they've grown up and they still remember this and still talk about it. Obviously because Professor Kirk made the wardrobe. Okay, this is a whole thing I need to unpack too, because as I've said multiple times, I've loved the movie The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe since I was like 7. I never knew the backstory was in the series. If you don't know, and I'm just gonna start spoiling. I tried not to earlier, but whatever. It's been out since fucking 1950. So in the book, he has a sick mom. And so he is trying to do anything to bring a cure back for her when he's exploring these magical lands, and Aslan gives him this apple. There's a whole thing with the apple where he has to resist temptation, hi Adam and Eve. But he's able to bring it back to his world, gives his mom the apple, she eats it, heals her. He has the core of the apple and plants it in his backyard along with all the rings that got them to that magical land in the first place. Guess what? Tree grows. But at the end of the book, the tree falls down, and so instead of letting it go to waste, he creates a wardrobe with it. And there's even a line that mentions, and he had no idea the transportive powers of this wardrobe until the end of the book. I just love the setup of the origin story of the wardrobe in Narnia, and the fucking girl, I'll let there's a picture of it, but don't fucking talk to me about the lamp post. That stupid Narnia lamp post is something that lives so rent-free in my head as like this iconic image of almost like a lighthouse to finding a magical world. It's just like a beacon in my head of like, we're about to enter somewhere magical. So I love the symbol of the lamp post, and finding out where that came from was so fun. Anyway, obviously I dived right into the sequel. First of all, this cover is absolutely darling. These are illustrations by the original illustrator. I think her name's Pauline. Yes, Pauline Baines. We open it. I pissed and shitted when I opened it and saw a map. Because in this book, Aslan is like sending them on a mission to go get the apple, and he's like, yeah, you're gonna go past the river over there. Don't go too far to the left because that's the wastelands. Don't go over there because that's the other kingdom. Oh, and wait, up there over the mountains is the other wastelands. And I was like, I thought Narnia was the entire world, but it's just a section of the world and there's other shit. If there's one thing about me, I love a map. I studied this for about 30 minutes last night. The fact that Narnia is a country and not the whole world kind of blew my mind. That wasn't even it though. So I read the map for 30 minutes, enjoyed that, and I kept flipping. Cute little title page. Hi Santa. Oh wait, no, that's the White Witch. Anyway, kept flipping. What do you mean, to Lucy? There's a real Lucy, to Lucy Barfield. And this was also, am I gonna cry? Maybe. Lucy Pevensey is one of my favorite fictional characters. I love her so much, and I love the girl who plays her in the movie. I can't remember her name. Love her. Anyway, this was so cute because it's like, I wrote this story for you, but when I began it, I didn't realize that girls grow quicker than books. As a result, you are already too old for fairy tales. But someday you will be old enough to start reading fairy tales again. And you can take it down from the upper shelf, dust it off, and tell me what you think. Lucy? That made me so distraught. I actually need to know who this Lucy is. Where's my phone? Hey Siri, who is Lucy Barfield? She died in 2003. I'm gonna be upset. That's like 2 years before the movie came out. No! It's fine. She's so precious. The fact that this is not inspired by, but like dedicated to a real girl is so sweet. Okay, well, I'm slightly embarrassed to admit that I did do like a deep dive research last night when I was rating this on Goodreads, because I was like, I need the tea about this man. So Lucy is the daughter of Owen Barfield, who C.S. Lewis was friends with because they had a writing club back in Oxford called the Inklings, which, by the way, before reading these, I've had this like an itch to go to Oxford because I watch a YouTuber who goes there, and now that I'm like looking up the bars they used to frequent, I'm like, I could be going to Oxford right now, but I'm not. Now do I have to read everything that Owen Barfield has written because his daughter is fucking Lucy Pevensey? Apparently when her health was failing at the end of her life, her brother Alexander visited her often. She liked to listen to Geoffrey reading her the Chronicles of Narnia over and over again. Lucy! Anyway, if you needed a fun fact to ruin your day, I'm about to cry about that. I made it about 26 pages into The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe last night. This one's going to fly by because already I'm just seeing the movie in my head. I didn't realize that literally page 1, chapter 1, we are at the professor's house. The movie really sets up the tone of the escapism of getting to the mansion with the professor because they're trying to get away from World War II, which this was written in like the late 40s or maybe even like 1950s, so this is still fresh after wartime. I don't know, I think it's interesting that the kids of the time were getting given a book about escaping a horror that they lived through, which that's gonna make me cry if I think about that for too long, because already the movie and setting up how the kids have to leave their mom and they just want to keep the children safe, and the irony of them finding this world that's fraught with war and getting to save that one and be the hero in that world instead of having to be the ones to hide in the real world. Like, don't get me started. But anyway, this book starts like right off on the action. Chapter 1, she finds the wardrobe. Chapter 1, we meet Mr. Tumnus, which I've always been confused about the first scene with Mr. Tumnus in the movie where he plays her like the flute thing. Then she falls asleep, then she wakes up and he's like crying. I've always been like, what's going on? Did he just not think he did a good job performing for her, or what happened there? But the book explains it so much better. He was going to rat her out to the White Queen. Oh my god, I meant to call her the White Witch. Am I on the wrong side of history? But then decided against it, but he still feels guilty that he thought about doing it. Finally, that makes sense. Maybe next time I'll watch the movie, I'll realize he did say something to that effect and I've just been stupid all these years. But I could go on and on and on and on and on about each of the character roles in this. We all hate Edmund. We don't have to talk about it. Susan being the antithesis of Lucy, where Lucy is like, there's a magical world. If we have to go help, we have to go be in it. And Susan being the logical one who's like, no, this doesn't exist. You're crazy. This is also a study of gaslighting, by the way. And the way that like Susan tries to reason versus Lucy is just like, yeah, beavers talk. I just love the differences in all the siblings and how differently they think. I'm so happy. These are so good so far. And I've spent like 10 minutes now just talking about the first book, so I've got to quicken this up. Yeah, for the record, I tried to put Narnia music here, but I got copyrighted, so here's some royalty-free music. Bum, 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 bum. Hey y'all, I'm 48 pages into The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'm really liking it too. I think this, like, how can this not be my favorite one in the series? It's the most iconic one. I'm at the scene where they're telling the professor, like, isn't Lucy crazy? She found this weird world. And he's like, what if I told you? I wrote down a lot of notes the last time I was reading it. I have not yet listened to this while the movie soundtrack is playing, so I need to do that right now. I don't know where my TV remote is the problem with that. Also, I'm not here to give Edmund any brownie points, but I do think it's interesting that in the movie, he's like, can I have some Turkish delight? And the whole joke is that this dude betrays his whole family for a bite of the shittiest candy known to man. But in the book, it's an enchanted candy, which is why he wants to go back so bad to get more and why he was willing to talk. I feel like that was an important detail, and maybe if I had known that when I watched the movie, I might think of him differently, but he's also a little bitch who gaslights his sister, so never mind. Yeah, if there's one thing about me, I am gonna cry during the Santa scene in Narnia. There's something so powerful and touching about kids who are literally living through the war with nothing, getting Christmas presents, and even though it is like weapons for war, like Santa is just such a symbol of hope. And I watch Narnia every Christmas because of that scene, and I kind of was wondering, like, is that even gonna be in the book? Like, Santa is such a random thing, but the whole phrase that everyone uses about the White Witch is that she makes it always winter but never Christmas, and Christmas just means that the world is becoming okay again. Sorry, my music is so loud right now. Hope you're enjoying that. So I'm on page 111 now, halfway through. Cried. It's so good. So I may or may not have fallen asleep on the couch earlier while I was reading. It's now 3:30 a.m. I just finished it. I just cried so much. I don't know how coherent I'm gonna be because it's literally the middle of the night and I'm reviewing a book. I have to say, this might be one of the greatest kids' books of all time. And the movie did it so much justice. It was so well done. I do think it was weird that Aslan was depicted as walking on 2 feet at some points and like using his front paws as hands. The ending of this always gets me, where you can live your whole life in one world and then tumble back into the wardrobe and just become a child again. Like, imagine being a kid and growing up with all the knowledge of having lived a life and knowing all that you know is like a 35-year-old, but you're 10 again. It's just crazy to me. And also maybe a bit traumatizing if you've grown up and now you're forced to be a kid again in the 1940s. But anyway, Lucy is one of my favorite main characters of all time. I just love how she's so forgiving and brave and trusting. Man, there's no way I can't give this book 5 stars. It was incredible. And I can't believe I haven't read it until now. I'm gonna go grab book 3 and try and get like a chapter into it, because I always like to start a book before I go to bed. But wow, that was so good. Aloha. It is 10:45 on Friday night. This lamp is very intense. I don't think I ever recorded me starting this book, but I just finished it. So let's discuss book 3, The Horse and His Boy. So this one follows 2 new main characters. The first one is Shasta, who's a white boy who grew up in a very Middle Eastern coded world where everyone is very cruel and very greedy. So he wants to escape to go to Narnia because he's heard that that's a nicer land. And on the way out he meets Aravis, and together they go on this journey to go to Narnia. So other than the fact that this book takes like 80 pages to get good, I was so bored in the beginning. Why the hell are you writing a fantasy world where you could make anything be about anything, including talking animals or dragons or people who are other species, and instead the villains of this book are Arab coded people? This book is just so Islamophobic and so stereotypical. It's just so disappointing to go from one of the greatest kids books of all time to this. It's very much like villainizing what you don't know. Really, the only thing that redeemed this for me is that Susan and Edmund are in it. So now that we're going chronologically, like, they are the king and queen, so you're seeing them after they've been in Narnia for a couple of years. I just like returning to them. It was an interesting addition to the story to see more about the world, because also now you're getting to know the kingdoms around Narnia and not just the country of Narnia itself. But again, it was not worth the mental anguish of being like, ooh, okay. I can see why this one was never adapted and why it's largely regarded as one of the worst in the series. When I was Googling about this to see what it was based off of, I just saw so many articles about ethnocentrism and how whiteness and like England was really positioned as like the normal kind of society, and everything outside of that was other. There's a lot of research I could do into this book to understand why the hell that had to happen. And also, of all the shitty societies that like to conquer other people, why is England itself not the villain? Like, have some self-awareness. I think I'm gonna give this 2 stars. Like, whatever, it was a continuation, but at what cost? Okay, I moved my light a little bit. Is that better? Immediately I dove into Prince Caspian. Sorry. Bring. Hello. Oh, Ben Barnes. Hey girl. Hey girl. Color be shocked though when I got this book out of the box set and there are tabs in it. So I'm trying to remember. I've read 2 Narnia books. One of them I know is The Silver Chair. I don't know what the other one is, but I know I wrote my essay about Lucy. I mean, it has to be this one. I am 3 chapters in and remember nothing. So I'll be interested when I go to mark this on Goodreads if I actually already have a review for it and I just totally forgot that I've read it, which I think is about to be the case. This one is set after the kids go back to England and then they're thrust back into Narnia, so it's like their return. I'm gonna be honest, when I say I love the Narnia movies, I really just mean the first one. I don't think I've seen Prince Caspian all the way through more than once, and I definitely do not remember anything. I remember being confused, like, why is he Prince Caspian of Narnia if they're already kings and queens? So clearly I needed to revisit this, but already, again, I love that we are returning to our title characters. There's multiple references at this point to things that happened previously in them. Like in this book, I don't know if it was intentional, but there's a character who's like a hermit and he guards over this like walled garden with a tree in it. And I was like, is that the tree from book 1? In this one, it has already mentioned the characters in that book, how like the prince of the other kingdom came and visited them. And obviously it's referencing The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'm gonna keep jumping back to this one because I keep remembering things. There was a scene in this where Edmund is talking about traitors. They catch this character who like did a bad thing and they were like, we're gonna kill him. And Edmund has a moment where he's like, but traitors can be reformed. I've seen it. Edmund does not deserve rights and I don't care about him whatsoever. However, that kind of ate. Anyway, I have a feeling I'm gonna fly through this one because it's back to the characters I know and love. But that's my update for this evening, unless I finish this book, but I doubt it because I'm EP. The most important update of the morning is that this goblin is on my lap and is very much enjoying his Saturday morning. Are you happy? Well, good morning. I have just had my breakfast and finished Prince Caspian. He had me in the first half. It was really interesting, but I thought the second half was a lot more meandering. Aslan only appeared when he wanted to, and like no one believed in him anymore, not even the Pevensey kids. And then the whole drama they had with the Telmar kingdom. Basically the plot of this one is like Narnia has aged like 1,000 years since the kids were last there, and it's been taken over by this new race of people called the Telmars, which used to be a neighboring kingdom, but then during a famine they came and invaded Narnia and took over. And so some dude in his court overthrew him. They want to steal his power, so he like runs away and then encounters Narnians and they're trying to rebuild like the old Narnia. So they call Susan, Peter, and everyone to come help them fight them. But I thought that whole part was confusing because rather than there being a war, they just kind of like sword fought each other. It just felt interesting. Also, I had Caspian in my head as Ben Barnes, and in this book he's like Peter's age, which I think is like 16 or 17. I don't know if Ben Barnes was supposed to be that young when he was in the movie, but ooh. I definitely want to rewatch the movie now that I know what the book is all about. But I think I'm only gonna give that one 3 stars. It's a little bit bittersweet because at the end of the book, Peter and Susan are both like, Aslan told me this is our last time that we'll ever be in Narnia, so we're saying our goodbyes. So I know that at least there's 2 others that do come back. Also, I got to all my sticky tabs. They were basically like stupid lines. I have no idea why I needed to mark those. And I don't remember anything about this book, so I'm almost wondering if I didn't even read it for class and I just marked the pages that my professor talked about when we read it together in class or like discussed it. So I really have no idea. The next book is The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I'm staring at it on my bookshelf over there. I can't get up because this dude. If my memory serves me correctly, I think that one also has a movie adaptation, but it's a new character. It's like a dude is the main character. The only thing I remember is they're like on a beach at some point. Maybe I'm just thinking of this one because they start out on a beach. Okie smoky, ahoy there, I have showered. My mission is to read this and not fall asleep. I'm not going to read in bed. I am going to read on the couch and I am horizontal, but I have hope that I'll stay awake. But I started Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I'm only 23 pages in and already I really like it. So this one, I mean, I should have seen from the cover and the words voyage, like of course it's gonna deal with the ocean. It's a ship. So I did remember that correctly. This one is about Lucy and Edmund going back to Narnia, but they accidentally have their cousin Eustace with them, who's like very trickstery and just kind of a bully. Caspian is also back. It's like 3 years later for him and 1 year later for the others. And they are going to track down some of the Telmar people who sailed off to sea. But I'm gonna keep reading and it's gonna be so good. I like it so far. Guess what? They copyrighted me for this music too! I'll have to sing it myself. Oh my god, my cheeks are so red. It's because I'm insisting on reading in a sweatshirt when it was 103 today. Hey, it's 10 o'clock and I have finished The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. 5 stars. It was so good. I am not a fan of books set on ships or like pirate books. This book might have changed me though, because I think the thing that's the best about it is it's like a adventure book where they're just sailing and coming across different islands and figuring out what's there, and each of them is like a little moral lesson for each person. I just thought it was so interesting. You got to see a bunch of things that you never expected would be in Narnia. It was just a lot of fun, and then you get to return to characters that you had from Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And at the end is literally an embodiment of what a valiant roar, what a bland goodbye. I'm trying to wrap my head around the ending because a lot of it was kind of hard to picture, but it's like telling you that Edmund and Lucy are never again going to return to Narnia, which, ouch. It's also mentioning that Aslan is real in our world and you can see him again in the afterlife. I liked Eustace as a side character of being like the little annoying snotty kid. I really want to watch the movie now because I'm sure it's great. That's crazy. Who would ever let their camera die? Anyway, imagine my surprise when I start this. I was a little bit complaining about it in my head, aka out loud to Bonnie on FaceTime right now, because I was like, I'm gonna miss Lucy and Edmund, and this doesn't have any cool characters in it. Also, this is a reread because I read it for my freshman year of college. I remember nothing except there's a character named Puddleglum. Imagine my surprise when I'm on page 4 and a guy walks up to a girl crying outside of gym class. His name, unfortunately, was Eustace Scrub. Oh, so you mean... oh, so we're actually rounding back to this. I also googled the movie immediately after finishing this because I am so interested. Anyway, happy Sunday. I just finished The Silver Chair. This one I remembered nothing from again other than Puddleglum, which I'm obsessed with him. I thought this was fun. It was another like quest kind of book where they are given instructions and they have to fulfill the instructions line by line and remember them. And the whole purpose of the book is to not get sidetracked by other things, which I understand why I would have read this for class because it's all about staying on task and relying on your friends. I didn't love that the second half of it was all told underground because it felt like such a dull setting. The whole bit with the enchantress being the villain I think was fun. I just think it was also kind of stupid that they're looking for the son of Caspian with a character who has met young Caspian, and I was like, oh, he'll just recognize him, and he didn't. So that felt like a plot hole to me. The ending of this was super bittersweet. I like that C.S. Lewis is making stabs at education. Like, it talks about the experiment house where Eustace and Jill go to school, just being like this godless, corrupt almost institution, and at the end it even says like, oh, the headmistress there went on to other jobs and she was so useless at that they just put her in parliament, which I think is so funny. So I'm sure I would not have gotten that as a kid or even remembered that from when I read it in college, but I thought it was funny. I think I'm gonna give that one like 4 stars. And we now have only the last battle to get through, which I have never like pulled this book out and looked at the cover, and this looks wild. I am nervous though because I know that the Calamines are the villains of this book again. I have a feeling this is going to be another flop just because I don't like the world building of making the desert coated people of the South the really greedy and awful ones. I think it's so lazy. Also, we have been told that none of the Pevensey kids are going to be in any more of the books. I don't know who this follows, and I'm already a little bit like, I thought that the whole series would like build up to this being a big battle, like more so than the battle with the White Witch. This is kind of gonna pop up out of nowhere, I feel like. But I have no idea what to expect. I have no idea what it's about or why there's even a battle. But I guess let's dive into it. The first words of this are, in the last days of Narnia. So there's no happily ever after. We'll see. I have no clue what to expect. Okay, well, slight update as I'm 36 pages in. I've prepared myself a lunch of a croissant. I can tell this book is kind of gonna go off because, like I just said, he's getting a little bit brave and adding in some political commentary into these, which I think previous has pretty much just been religious commentary. Maybe this is like political religious commentary. This book so far is based on an ape who believes himself to be a man, has taken up the role of being the mouthpiece of Aslan, and if he wants more oranges and bananas, he tells all the forest, hey, Aslan said we need this and this and this, so give it to me. They all believe him. Basically exploiting all of these people thinking that they're doing things that their leader wants them to do, but in reality they're just being manipulated by someone who's greedy. Damn, it's already pissing me off. I just hate people who take advantage of other people. It's a little bit too on the nose for me about the real world, so I'm gonna have some of my chips. Might be crazy and do a little of this action. I can tell this book is gonna slap, especially if the villain is a Narnian from the inside causing drama and not necessarily this outside kingdom being the problem child. We'll see. Hey girls, we are approaching the end. By that, I mean I still have like an hour and a half left of this, but I'm on page 84. The thing I've learned is that this is the same two characters from the past two books. How come they have to go undercover as the bad guys? And he's like, quick, rub this dark oil all over yourself so we can blend in, please. Every time I'm like, oh, it won't be that bad. It gets worse. Welcome to a book written in the 1950s. Out of all the books so far, other than obviously The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I think this one has the most interesting moral dilemma. Everyone's confused on who Aslan is and if he's the real leader, especially now because someone's posing to be Aslan. But it's a lot of muddling through.
It's given false god.
I literally was gonna say that. I was like, if you like falsegod.mp4 Taylor's version, it's very much that. But also the verse from I Hate It Here about I would love this book, but without all the racists. We're almost there, folks. Next time I update, I think we'll be done. Yeah, I just finished it and I'm crying because they're all dead and Mr. Tumnus was there. And that was so unexpected. Holy shit. It's like, hey kids, thanks for joining me on the multi-year journey of the Narnia series. By the way, I'm gonna kill all of them except for Susan because she's a non-believer and she doesn't get to go to heaven. What? Honestly, the ending of that book would have made it 5 stars, but this book literally also uses racial slurs. This feels like, you know when you watch like Dumbo and at the beginning there's a slide that's like, we are showing this in its original form just to preserve the history of it, but we don't condone what's in. Like, it feels like that. I'm like, Clive, did you have to? No one warned me that the Pevensey children die? So crazy. I guessed halfway through the book that because there were so many non-believers it was going to turn into some kind of storyline about the rapture. Didn't realize we'd take it that far. After Prince Caspian, it time jumped so long that I was like, oh, so Mr. Tumnus is dead? So I'm happy we got to see him one last time. I love Lucy and Edmund. I can't believe I also came around to liking Edmund. That was not expected. Let me go sit down to do a full series wrap up. All right, so the Cronies of Narnia. I understand why, having come from a very religious household, why this was purchased as a box set for childhood me. Each of them very much does mirror either a Bible story or a couple Bible stories, or just has some lesson about how the Lord's gonna get you if you don't watch out. Especially the divide between believer and non-believer. You can very much tell who's in and who's out. I was not expecting the ending of the series whatsoever, and maybe this is because The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is so iconic. Like, Lucy and the Pevensey siblings are all so important to me that for half of the series to not even contain them significantly was interesting. I'm not a big fan of Eustace as a character. He grew on me in Voyage of the Dawn Treader, but like during Silver Chair and the last battle, I was like, like he's alright. I think part of the reason why I loved the books that I did though is because I was able to picture them like I pictured the movies. Maybe because they never received adaptations beyond Voyage of the Dawn Treader, I dropped off in my interest. Either way, I will have to say the highlight of the series for me is definitely, obviously, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because it's just so iconic. I just love the themes of this, and I don't know why I'm clutching like an entire box set while I'm doing this discussion, especially because this is like 10 pounds of photo paper. But something about escapism in childhood, and even as an adult, like the idea that you can just find a different world that is so much better than ours just for some reprieve. I do think there was an interesting point in the last book where they said, maybe it wasn't even the last book, but something like, the children from the real world only come to Narnia when there's hardship, but for hundreds and hundreds of years, it was peaceful, and it was nice, and it was fun. But even in times of hardship, Narnia was like 50 times better than what was going on in the real world. I think my second favorite is Voyage of the Dawn Treader, because, like I said, it was just such an adventurous romp. Beyond that, I definitely didn't like The Horse and His Boy or The Last Battle as much. The Magician's Nephew I think was interesting. Prince Caspian and The Silver Chair were both okay, but nothing to write home about. I obviously read them in chronological order and not publishing order, because chronological order is hands down the best way I could have done this. There were nods to so many things that happened in previous books. If I would have read this in publishing order, I would have been so confused, and there would have been so many references to things that haven't happened yet. And then it's like, oh, did this happen before or after? Even with the world building, like there's characters that experience certain parts of Narnia that don't get unveiled until later in the series, but then it like reminds you of when other stuff happened earlier in the books. I just think it unfolded really nicely to read them in chronological order versus publishing order, so I don't know if that's still a huge debate, but I would definitely recommend that reading order. I cannot believe it has taken me this long to read these. Like I said, I've owned these since like 2005. My mom bought them for us, and that is that. That being said, I did Google when these go into the public domain, so 2045, I'm coming. I'm writing my spin-off. That was it. I read all 7 Narnia books in like a week and a half. I know this video is probably like an hour long. Thank you for sticking by. Let me know if you've read the Narnia series, if you agree or have any further insights. Like I said, I've seen like research articles on some of these books, so I'm sure there was a lot of discourse that I'm missing out on and a lot of little cues I didn't pick up on, especially because as the series went along, I updated lists frequently, so this video wouldn't be 2 hours long. Anyway, hope you're having a good day. Thank you for sitting and listening. Bye!